From CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. House Speaker Danny Perez is moving forward with a plan to cut the state sales tax from 6% to 5.25%. The reduction would save Floridians about $5 billion. Governor Ron DeSantis has come out against the plan, saying he wants to use that $5 billion to send every person with a homestead exemption a check for $1,000. The difference, of course, is that not everyone owns a home, and the governor's plan would do nothing to bring tax relief to folks who rent. Also, the governor's plan is a one-time rebate, where the sales tax plan would be permanent. This week, I spoke to House Speaker Perez about why he is pushing this plan forward.
Well, I don't think anyone can disagree with taxes are not something that we want to increase. We want to decrease taxes, all taxes, property taxes, sales taxes. But there are some that we as a legislature are constitutionally able to change, and others we are not. The sales tax is the one tax that affects the most amount of Floridians, all Floridians, and that the legislature actually controls. And so we decided to cut the budget by almost $5 billion, which, Jim, has never happened in the state of Florida with a tax cut this large. And at the same time, we reduced the sales tax by 0.75% by doing that cut. And that's a sales tax cut that hasn't happened in the history of the United States. And so we tried to make sure that we made a tax cut, of course, and that we were fiscally conservative with our budget, but that we affected the most amount of Floridians. That's how we arrived to the sales tax.
The governor is advocating that instead of a sales tax decrease, he wants to send every person who has a homestead exemption a $1,000 rebate check, which is roughly about the same amount of money, $5 billion. Why do you believe that's not the right approach? Why do you think he's wrong in that approach?
So I believe that the $1,000 that the governor wants to give each person that has a homestead property, I don't even think that gets to the full $5 billion tax cut. I don't think he's proposing as large of a tax cut as we are. Quite frankly, remember, he released his budget before we did. His released budget is higher than ours. His released budget never accounted for any of those two, neither the property tax initiative or the sales tax that we have proposed. And the reason I say the property tax initiative is under his proposal of giving $1,000 to every homestead property owner, you would not be decreasing the budget. You would be increasing the budget. And so I think there are two different things. That being said, Jim, I have told the governor, and I've said this publicly, I'm all for cutting property taxes. I haven't gotten a proposal on truly cutting property taxes at the legislative level from the governor. And maybe that's because that really comes from local government. They are the ones that control property taxes. And as you've discussed before publicly, this is something that has to go to the ballot, and the voters have to decide on whether or not they want to cut property taxes in exchange for whatever services property taxes today fund. And that includes obviously police and fire and some K through 12 education stuff. But look, at the end of the day, we can all agree that we want all taxes to be cut. The one that we control are sales tax, and anyone that is against a tax cut of $5 billion and in an instance like this one where the money goes directly back to the people, I would have to disagree with whoever thinks that cutting $5 billion from the budget is a bad idea.
Well, he's arguing that the sales tax reduction really doesn't benefit Floridians as much as it'll benefit Canadians and Brazilians. His quote was, "I want Canadian tourists and Brazilian tourists subsidizing the state and making it so Florida residents pay less taxes. I don't want to give Canadians a tax cut." His argument is that the sales tax is more often paid by folks who aren't residents of Florida. What's your response?
I think the number is about 15% of our sales tax gets paid for by tourists. But a majority of that is paid for by Floridians. But I think his comment is disingenuous because he's supported tax holidays for gas, for fuel. Tourists buy fuel when they come to the state of Florida. He's had school supplies taxes. I mean, he's had multiple tax holidays where tourists are a part of that solution. And not that I'm against those, by the way, Jim. I'm okay with that. I voted for them. I agree with them. But it's hard to say that he's against the sales tax cut because tourists, 14 or 15% of the population are going to get a tax cut, and he only wants it to go to Floridians when he has signed budgets every single year that he's been here with tax cuts that have also been paid for in some capacity by tourists. By the way, I support that, but it's hard to, I don't agree with him that cutting the sales tax cut by 0.75%, a total of $5 billion, is a bad idea because it's going to help tourists or foreigners or Canadians, however he wants to do it. I mean, look, I don't know why he's reached that conclusion, but he has every right to do so. And I hope eventually he sees that being fiscally conservative and cutting the budget from last year to this year, which by the way hasn't happened during his tenure. I hope that is something he eventually gets on board, and I believe that the governor is a fiscal conservative, and eventually we'll get to that endpoint.
The Senate president issued a memo this week, sort of straddling between both positions. He said, I believe it is prudent that final tax cut package of this size be predominantly non-recurring, referring to your sales tax argument, while permanent tax cuts are explored during the interim. His concern seems to be that the state economists project that while this would cost roughly $5 billion, as you said, and that the state would have currently a $2 billion surplus, within 2 years, because of economic issues, the state could be facing a $7 billion deficit. And so therefore, we shouldn't do something in the long term when we don't know what the economic prospects for the state is. What's your response to that?
First and foremost, President Albritton is a good man. He's a great partner across the rotunda, and he's doing a great job leading the Senate. I don't agree with the financial outlook that he thinks the state will be in. I actually see it quite the opposite. I think by cutting the budget in a recurring manner, which is a permanent manner, it puts the state of Florida in a better position over the next 3 years. God forbid a recession were to happen. We actually believe that we'll be at a budget neutral position over the next 3 years, as opposed to a deficit because of the tax cut. This is a permanent tax cut. The problem with doing a non-recurring tax cut is next year you're back at a budget of over $120 billion of spending, $125 billion of spending, and then you're in a place to where, God forbid, there is a recession, you have to make meaningful cuts. In the position we're in now, we are not making meaningful cuts. K through 12, our education system was not cut. We increased our budget. This will be the largest K through 12 budget in the history of the state of Florida, while also making tax cuts of $5 billion and giving that money back to the people. We didn't cut any healthcare services. We didn't decrease any rates for Medicaid. I mean, we are funding what is necessary, while at the same time cutting what is fat. We continue to point to local government and say they are doing a poor job. They are spenders. But are we doing that to ourselves? Are we looking internally as a state government saying, where are we misspending? Where do we have fat? Where can we cut and give it back to the people? I don't think we had done that thus far, but we're doing it now, and we're taking from our own budget.
You know, so part of the tension that it seems like between the two proposals is, who do you want to have benefit from a tax reduction? The governor's focus on people with homesteads exemptions, therefore focuses on people who own homes. A sales tax exemption focuses on all Floridians, not just those who own homes, but those who aren't economically able to own homes. You know, Democrats have long held that a sales tax is regressive. To what extent does that play into your thinking of wanting to help a larger swath of people through this tax proposal that you're proposing?
Yeah, but Jim, I want to help the property owners too. We don't have a proposal that directly gives us the opportunity as a legislature to cut property taxes. That we don't have that power. I want it. Of course I want it. I want both, and both are viable. Even the governor's proposal of increasing the budget by just writing $1,000 checks to homeowners, that's a conversation that I'm willing to have. I don't consider that a tax cut, but nonetheless, I'm willing to have that conversation while waiting for a proposal from him that actually is a property tax cut in a manner that we constitutionally are able to provide. I don't know of one, but I'm open to the conversation. I want property owners to eventually not have to pay property taxes. I want every Floridian to eventually not have to pay sales taxes. Are we there right now? No, but how cool would it be if in 15, 20 years, we're in a state that doesn't have a sales tax? That would be the first of its kind, of course. But this is just the beginning of that, and we're trying to chip away at all taxes. And by the way, Jim, the cutting of the sales tax by by 0.75%. Also cuts the business rent tax and a variety of other taxes across the board. So we are also helping small businesses. I mean, this is a one-of-a-kind tax cut that I hope Floridians all over the state in all 67 counties are proud of.
There seems to be some tension continuing to grow between you and the governor, and that he has sort of ratcheted up in recent comments that he's made to the Republican Party of Florida and others. And some of it goes to the issue of Hope Florida, which is the agency or the group that formed by Casey DeSantis. It's a private group that sort of tries to help, that is trying to get codified within state law. There was a story that talked about how they have not met any of their reporting requirements, not filed income taxes, not really provided any transparency to how they do what they do and what happens to the money that they end up receiving. The governor has said that story was planted by Republican and House leaders.
Yeah, I think he told the reporter that that I had alleged to the reporter that I had given the reporter some question as a plant to ask the governor. I mean, that's just a lie. I don't know where the governor got that from. It's unfortunate that he thinks that. That's not something that I have ever done, nor did I do 2 days ago when he made that comment. But hey, it is what it is. It seems that maybe he was having a bad day. I don't know. But no, I didn't do that. When it comes to Hope Florida, we have a bill that's moving through the House, and in the staff analysis, we did ask, as a nonprofit, there are certain questions we have to ask of the nonprofit when you file a bill that affects a nonprofit in the legislature. We did not get that information, and so we put in the staff analysis that we asked for information that we did not receive. But nonetheless, that is a bill that is moving through the process. It has passed a committee stop here. It moved favorably, and I have heard the testimony of many people that have been helped by Hope Florida, but we'll see where the bill ends up. There's still a long way to go before it passes the floor. I know the First Lady cares about it, but we'll take it on a stop-by-stop basis as it goes through the committee process.
I saw you had made some comments about a bill related to child labor that you didn't seem to be particularly supportive of. I'm not even sure where the bill is now moving in the Senate. I'm not sure it's gotten through its second committee, so I'm not sure if it's even moving on the Senate side. But give me your thoughts as to where that bill stands, because I saw that it was still moving through the House. And do you think this is really the approach the state should be taking to weaken rules regarding protecting minors as to how they're treated and being able to work overnights and no breaks and things like that?
Yeah, I've been public on this issue. I mean, we have a great representative in Representative Monique Miller that's moving this through the process. She's working very hard. The bill has changed multiple times as well, Jim. So it's, kudos to her for listening to people and changing it through the committee process. I've been very vocal. I don't think any child should be working late nights or early mornings and then having to go to school the next day. The main priority for a child is to get an education and a good education at that. Some seventh grader who's working till 1 o'clock in the morning and then has an algebra test the next day should never be put in that position. So I've been pretty vocal about some of the hours that our children are working.
Is this the natural outcome of the state's immigration policies and the federal government's immigration policies, that if you have a crackdown on undocumented workers in the state of Florida, that you then have to turn to child labor? Is it wrong or right to make that connection?
I don't make that connection at all. I was waiting for you to finish the question respectfully, but I don't. I look at it as child labor laws. I look at it as, it's interesting. I have 3 children. I have a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And I remember a parent once told me, I asked him for advice, and a parent once told me, the one advice I can give you is try and allow your children to be children for as long as possible, because they'll never get that time back. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. I want a child to be a child, and a child should not be working late nights or early mornings. If there's a summer job that you want to get at Publix because you want some sort of responsibility for your child, great. I think that's awesome. But I look at this issue completely separate from anything that has to do with immigration.
When we come back, the Florida legislature is expected to pass a bill that will dramatically help people with mental illnesses who are caught up in the criminal justice system. Stay with us.